July 25th, 1944, 28,000 feet above the Luna Synthetic Oil Complex, Germany. The air is thin, biting cold. Inside the cockpit of his P-51 Mustang, Lieutenant Don Herky Miller of the 357th Fighter Group strains his eyes, his head on a constant, swiveling pivot. Below him, a vast, frozen white contrail-laced river marks the path of the Big Friends B-17 flying fortresses from the 8th Air Force, methodically marching toward their target. Miller's job is top cover. He's here to hunt the hunters, the Luftwaffe's Focke-Wulf. 190 seconds, and Messerschmitt 109 seconds. The radio crackles. Bandits, 5 o'clock low, dropping in on the straggler. Miller spots them. 4 BF 109 seconds. Silver glints diving with feral speed onto a lone B-17 lagging behind the formation. He banks his Mustang, the Merlin engine roaring to full combat power, and rolls into a steep, slicing dive. He's done this 100 times. He knows the math. He knows the angles. He knows his P-51 is the king of the sky. Then, something breaks the equation. A flicker of movement in his peripheral vision from above him. It's not a dive, it's a pass. A shape, arrow-like and sickly green, moving with a speed that simply does not belong in his world. Miller's mind struggles to process it. There is no propeller, no familiar, furious growl of a Daimler-Benz engine. Just a low, menacing hiss like a tearing sheet of canvas. What in the hell? The object streaks past his P-51 as if Miller were tethered to a post. It drops in behind the B-17 before the 109 seconds are even in range. There's a flicker of light from its nose, not the familiar sparkle of 20mm cannon, but 4 brilliant, orange-red flashes, like a dragon's breath. The B-17 doesn't just catch fire or lose a wing, it disintegrates. The tail section shears off completely. The fuselage explodes in a blossom of fire and aluminum. The strange aircraft doesn't bank or turn. It simply climbs. Miller, still in a 400 miles per hour dive, watches in stunned disbelief as the phantom craft pulls its nose up and accelerates vertically, vanishing into the sun, its contrail a perfectly straight white line against the blue. The attack, from appearance to kill, lasted less than 5 seconds. He keys his radio, his voice suddenly dry. "Blue leader, this is Miller. Did you see that? It wasn't a 109. It had no prop. It just went up." A voice crackles back, equally shaken. "I saw it, Herky. Keep your eyes peeled. I don't know what that was, but get the hell away from it." The flight back to base at Leiston is quiet, almost funereal. The usual victory rolls over the airfield are absent. Miller lands his Mustang, the machine feeling suddenly heavy, almost obsolete. He walks into the debriefing room, stripping off his sweat-soaked helmet and oxygen mask. The room is thick with cigarette smoke and the low murmur of exhausted crews. An intelligence officer, Major Harris, motions him over. "Lieutenant, your report mentioned an unconventional aircraft." Miller slumps into a wooden chair, his hands still shaking. "Major, I fought 109 seconds from 30,000 feet to the deck. I've tangled with Focke-Wulfs in a full-on furball. That thing was not a piston engine fighter." Harris leans forward, his face a mask of detached curiosity. "Describe unconventional, Lieutenant." "It had no propeller, sir. I'm telling you. No prop. It had 2 pods or something under the wings. It moved. My God, it must have been doing 500. Easy. Maybe more. We were in a 400 miles dive, and he passed us like we were standing still." Another pilot chimes in from across the room. "I saw it too. Looked like a goddamn shark." Harris nods slowly, opening a folder on his desk. He pulls out a grainy, high-altitude reconnaissance photo, taken over a test field at Lechfeld. It's a blurry silhouette of a sleek, swept-wing aircraft parked on a hard stand. "Did it look like this, Lieutenant?" Miller stares at the photo. His blood runs cold. The swept wings, the fuselage shaped like a cigar, and the two menacing engine nacelles. "That's it," he whispers. "That's the bastard." Harris taps the photo. "Gentlemen, you're not going crazy. Welcome to the future. This is the Messerschmitt Me 262. The Germans call it Schwalbe, the swallow. Our friends at Y Service have been intercepting whispers about it for months. We thought it was propaganda." He pauses, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "It's powered by two Junkers Jumo 004 jet engines. We don't know much, but we know this. Its top speed is estimated at 540 miles per hour. A silence falls over the room. Every man does the math. Their P-51 seconds, the absolute pinnacle of Allied propeller technology, top out around 440. The P-47 Thunderbolt, 430. The Spitfire, 450. This new German weapon is, in a straight line, 100 miles per hour faster than anything they have. Miller finally speaks, his voice low. "How do you fight that? How do you even catch it?" Major Harris closes the folder. "That's the million-dollar question, Lieutenant. Right now, you don't. High Command's new directive is, if you see one, do not engage. Do not try to dogfight. Dive and run for home." For the first time since the war began, the hunter has just been told to become the prey. The order filters down through the 8th Air Force like a poison. Do not engage. For the cocksure, aggressive fighter jocks of the mighty 8th, it's a galling, almost insulting directive. They are the knights of the sky, and they are being told to run from a dragon. But the reality is grimmer than any order can convey. The autumn of 1944 becomes a season of fear. The Me 262 seconds are no longer lone phantoms. They are organized. Elite German pilots, aces like Adolf Galland and Walter Novotny, are forming Jagdstaffeln dedicated solely to the jet. They have developed a new, terrifying tactic. October 7th, 1944, 30,000 feet, approaching Merseburg. Staff Sergeant Leo Pop Kovacs, a waist gunner on the B-17 Heaven's Bane, squints through his thick plexiglass window, his breath freezing to the inside of his oxygen mask. His hands, clumsy in their fleece-lined gloves, grip the .50 caliber machine gun. He's scanning for 109 seconds, but his eyes are really searching for something else. "Fighters, dead ahead," the pilot yells over the intercom, "and they ain't 109 seconds." Kovacs sees them. Not 4, not 8, but a formation of 30. Me 262 seconds. They aren't diving or climbing. They are flying straight through the bomber stream, company front, like a line of cavalry. But they are flying 200 miles per hour faster than the bombers. "My God, they're not even aiming!" Kovacs screams. He doesn't understand. They don't need to. The jets are armed with the new R-4M Orkan air-to-air rockets, dozens of them slung under their wings. A single German pilot, flying in a straight and level line, simply presses a button. The sky erupts in a salvo of high explosive. It's not a dogfight. It's an execution. The rockets create a shotgun blast in the sky, a wall of shrapnel and fire half a mile wide. The B-17 to Kovacs's left, Miss B. Havin, simply vanishes in a flash of orange and black smoke. Another, hit in the cockpit, noses over, and begins a silent, terminal dive. Kovacs opens fire, his .50 caliber rounds walking out into the blue. But it's a useless gesture. The tracers look like they are floating backwards. The jets are already through the formation before his first shell has traveled halfway to its target. High above, the P-51 escort pilots watch in a state of impotent rage. They dive on the jets, firewalls pushed to the limit, but the 262 seconds simply add a touch of throttle and pull away, their Jumo engines leaving a trail of dirty smoke as they vanish into the distance, ready to reform and attack again. The big friends are alone. The jets hit the formation 3 more times, like wolves slashing at a herd of bison, before disappearing for good. That day, the 8th Air Force loses 40 bombers and 15 fighters. The 262 seconds lose. 1. Winter, 1944. USAAF, Strategic Air Forces, HQ, Pine Tree, England. The mood is grim. The kill ratio charts, once a source of Allied pride, are beginning to tilt. The Me-262, while not numerous enough to stop the air war, is exacting a horrific, unsustainable price on the bomber crews. Major General Jimmy Doolittle, commander of the 8th Air Force, stares at a map of known jet airfields. "We cannot win a race with this thing," Doolittle says, his voice flat. "So we stop trying." The room looks at him, puzzled. "Sir? We can't catch it at 30,000 feet. It's too fast. We can't outclimb it. It's too powerful." "But," he says, jabbing a finger at a photo of a 262 landing, "it's not fast when it's not flying." This is the new strategy. The Y service intelligence and ultra-intercepts have pinpointed the jet's fatal flaw. The Jumo 004 engines, revolutionary as they were fragile. They spooled up with agonizing slowness, taking nearly a full minute to respond to throttle changes. They were prone to flameouts and had a lifespan of only 10 to 25 hours. And, most importantly, the Me-262 was a sitting duck during two critical phases, takeoff and landing. The order goes out, reversing a decade of air combat doctrine. The P-51 and P-47 Thunderbolt groups are given a new, predatory mission. They will no longer just protect the bombers. They are to become jet hunters. Their new hunting ground is not the stratosphere, but the treetops. The mission is called rat catching. Fighter groups will now fly ahead of the bomber stream, ignoring enemy fighters, and proceed directly to the known 262 airfields at places like Lechfeld, Akmer, and Rhein. There, they will circle for hours, at low altitude, inside the most heavily defended flak zones in the Third Reich, waiting. For the pilots, it's the most terrifying mission of the war. They are exposed, vulnerable, and flying in lazy circles, while every 88mm and 20mm flak gun on the ground tries to find their range. They are bait, dangling themselves in front of the hornet's nest. But they wait, because they know the jets must come home, and when they do, with their fuel low, their airspeed bleeding off, and their landing gear down, they are no longer phantoms, they are targets. March 21st, 1945, 800 feet above Akmer Airfield, Germany. Captain Chuck Yeager of the 363rd Fighter Squadron, 357th Fighter Group, feels naked. His P-51D, Glamorous Glen 3, is flying slow, lazy circles. Below him, the ground is a tapestry of flak pits. Every few seconds, a puff of greasy black smoke appears nearby, a sharp thwump echoing through his airframe. This isn't flying, it's trolling. Eagle leader, this is Eagle 4. Flak is getting thick, real thick. A voice crackles on the radio. "Hold your water, Eagle 4, Yeager replies, his West Virginia drawl cutting through the static. "They'll be home soon. They're low on gas." He scans the tree line, not the sun. He's looking for a shadow, a glint, a shape moving too fast for the trees. For 20 minutes, there's nothing but the flak. Then, he sees it. A lone Me, 262, low and slow, its profile unmistakable, its landing gear already down. The jet pilot is focused on his runway, his airspeed dropping below 150 miles per hour, his fragile engines throttled back. Tally-ho, one on the deck, final approach. Yeager rolls Glamorous Glen 3 onto its wing and drops. There's no complex geometry, no deflection shooting. This is a gangster move, a straight-up assassination. He rockets across the treetops at 400 miles per hour, closing the distance in seconds. The 262 pilot, his cockpit canopy open, physically looks over his shoulder. Yeager can see the man's white helmet and the flash of panic. The German pilot shoves his throttle forward, desperate for power, but he knows, and Yeager knows, it's too late. The Jumo engines can only cough and wheeze, unable to spool up in time. Jaeger is now just 200 yards behind the jet. It's like shooting a parked truck. He presses the trigger. The 6.50 caliber machine guns on the Mustang roar. The line of tracers doesn't just hit the 262, it consumes it. The jet's right engine nacelle explodes. The port wing shears off. The sleek, futuristic airframe cartwheels into the ground just short of the runway, disintegrating in a massive, rolling fireball of jet fuel and shrapnel. Jaeger doesn't admire his work. He firewalls the throttle, pulls the stick back into his gut, and climbs vertically through the flak, the sound of explosions now joined by the ping-ping of small arms fire from the ground. This is how the superweapon dies. Not in a blaze of high-altitude glory, but ambushed at home by a piston-engine fighter that shouldn't have been able to get within a mile of it. The rat-catching strategy is working. Spring 1945. The skies over Germany. The Me-262 is no longer a stunning shock. It is a known quantity, a cornered animal. The rat-catching tactics are devastatingly effective. For every jet shot down in the air, Allied P-47 seconds and P-51 seconds, now released from escort duty, are destroying 5, 10, 20 on the ground. They strafe the airfields, they bomb the dispersal areas, they hunt the fuel trucks. The German pilots who remain are a mix of grizzled, exhausted experten and teenage boys rushed through training, pilots who have barely 10 hours in a propeller plane, let alone a jet. They are flying a 540 MPO miracle weapon, but they are doing it with no fuel, no training, and no hope. The war is no longer in the sky, it's on the ground. The Me-262, a weapon that demanded pristine runways and a river of specialized J2 synthetic fuel, is now based on cratered mud strips and sections of the Autobahn. April 10th, 1945. Advancing elements of General Patton's Third Army, near Gotha. A young GI, Private First Class Mike Stanwyck, rides on the front of an M4 Sherman, his rifle cradled in his arms. His unit has just overrun a massive German airfield. They are expecting a fight, but the only sound is the wind whistling through empty hangars. Then they see them. Not one, not two, but dozens of Me-262 seconds. They are parked in neat rows, hidden under camouflage netting, sitting in forest clearings. They are brand new. The paint is still fresh. Many have never even been flown. Stanwyck walks up to one, its sleek, shark-like body a silent, menacing green. He reaches out and touches the cold metal. It is the most advanced, terrifying machine he has ever seen. And it is completely out of fuel. There are no pilots, there are no mechanics. The impossible superweapon that had stunned Allied pilots just months before, the Phantom that moved 100 miles per hour faster than anything America could build, is grounded. It is a futuristic sword with no one left to swing it. The Me-262 was a technological revolution. It was the future of aviation, a machine that proved propeller-driven combat was over, but it arrived in a nation that was already collapsing. It was a miracle that came too late, an impossible weapon that ultimately could not stop the inevitable. As Stanwyck and his fellow GIs roll past the silent, useless jets, they are no longer looking at a weapon of war. They are looking at the tombstone of the Luftwaffe. May 15th, 1945. USAAF Strategic Air Forces HQ, Pine Tree, England. The maps on the wall are no longer for planning raids, they are for tallying the spoils. General Karl Tui Sparts, commander of USS Taff, lights a cigarette, the smoke clouding his face. In his hand is the final, terrifying report. The intelligence officers, the slide rule warriors, who had tracked the jet menace, had just finished their full inventory. Over 1,400 Me-262 seconds had been built. Hundreds more were in various stages of assembly in hidden, bomb-proof underground factories. The generals in the room are not celebrating. They are cold with a new kind of realization. "Gentlemen," Sparts says, his voice gravelly, "we didn't just win, we were lucky. He holds up the report. The 262 was just the beginning. They had the Arado 234, a jet bomber we couldn't catch. They had the Heinkel 162, the Volksjäger, a cheap people's fighter made of wood, designed to be built by slave labor and flown by children. They had blueprints for things I can't even describe. Swept-wing interceptors, rocket planes. He looks at Jimmy Doolittle, who nods grimly. The German war machine wasn't just defeated, it was interrupted. The what-if hangs unspoken in the air. What if Hitler hadn't meddled, demanding the 262 be a bomber? What if they had perfected the Jumo engines just 6 months earlier? What if they had the fuel? The air campaign of 1944, the one that broke the Luftwaffe, would have been impossible. The skies would have been swept clean of P-51 seconds. The B-17 formations would have been systematically annihilated. D-Day itself, without air superiority, would have been a catastrophic failure. The men in that room understood what Private Stanwyck on the ground could not. The Me-262 wasn't just a fast plane. It was a loaded gun, aimed at the heart of the entire Allied war strategy, and the trigger had only failed to be pulled by a matter of months. The war was over. But the race for this new, terrifying technology had just begun. June 1945. Lechfeld Airfield, Allied-occupied Germany. The war in Europe is over, but a new, silent conflict is raging. It's a war of intelligence, a desperate scramble to capture Germany's technological secrets before they are destroyed or fall into Soviet hands. This is Operation Lusty. Teams of Allied engineers and test pilots, like Colonel Harold Watson's Whizzers, swarm over the captured airfields. They are the rat catchers turned treasure hunters. They find hangars packed with the sleek, shark-like fuselages of Me-262 seconds. They discover underground factories, mountains of blueprints, and terrified German engineers eager to trade their knowledge for a meal. The Whizzers' mission is to find, repair, and fly the enemy's best. American test pilot Major Bob Strobel walks around a captured Me-262. It has been repainted with American stars, a bizarre sight. He climbs into the cockpit. The instruments are all in German, the layout alien. He's been briefed by a captured Luftwaffe mechanic on the nightmare starting procedure, a complex, dangerous sequence involving a 2-stroke Riedel starter engine that could easily flood and explode. He gets the turbines to whine, then roar. The feeling is unlike anything else. No propeller torque, no bone-shaking vibration, just a smooth, terrifying push. He takes off. The acceleration is brutal, pinning him to his seat. Within minutes, he's at 20,000 feet, faster than any P-51 could dream of. He's flying the impossible weapon, but he also feels its flaws. The engines are fickle, threatening to flame out. The controls are heavy. The landing is a high-speed, no-go-around gamble. These captured jets are meticulously disassembled, crated, and loaded onto aircraft carriers bound for the United States. They aren't just war trophies, they are the textbooks for the next generation of warfare. The most brilliant minds at Lockheed, North American, and Republic Aviation are waiting for them, ready to tear them apart and steal their fire. The American Whizzers were not alone in this treasure hunt. As Patton's Third Army raced east, the Soviet Red Army was surging west. When the dust settled and the new Iron Curtain began to descend, the accounting of the spoils revealed a critical split. While the Americans had captured more intact airframes, the Soviets had captured something far more valuable: the factories and the engineers. July 1945. The Junkers engine works at Dessau and the BMW factory at Stassfurt. Red Army officers, under the watchful eye of NKVD agents, secure the sprawling, heavily bombed industrial complexes. They find what remains of the Jumo 004 and BMW 003 assembly lines. They seize the tooling, the technical data, the wind tunnel results, and, most importantly, thousands of German scientists, technicians, and engineers. While American teams were learning to fly the 262, Soviet teams were learning to build it. Aircraft designers like Artem Mikoyan and Mikhail Gurevich are given a simple directive: absorb this technology, replicate it, and surpass it immediately. The result is almost instantaneous. By 1946, the first Soviet jets take to the sky. The Yakovlev Yak-15 and the MiG-9 are strange, almost hybrid-looking aircraft. Their fuselages look Soviet, but their hearts are German. They are powered by reverse-engineered copies of the Jumo 004 and BMW 003 engines. The Me-262, the Swallow, is now effectively flying with a red star on its wing. The seeds of the future are sown. The DNA of this impossible weapon is now in the hands of both of the world's new superpowers, setting the stage for a new kind of arms race. October 1st, 1947, Muroc Army Airfield, California. The high desert air is still. A strange, hybrid-looking aircraft, the Bell X-1, is being prepared for a date with destiny. Nearby, on another runway, sits the prototype of the North American XP-86. It's a sleek, beautiful machine. And it has a feature that looks eerily familiar: swept-back wings. The captured Me-262 seconds, along with a mountain of German wind tunnel data, had been the key. American engineers, previously struggling with the violent buffeting of compressibility as they neared the speed of sound, found the answer in the German research. The Me-262's wings, while not fully swept, were a step in that direction. But the blueprints and research papers found in those German labs, particularly the work of Adolf Bussmann, were the true, impossible treasure. They were the missing piece of the puzzle. The legacy of the Me-262 wasn't just its engines, it was its shape. Just 2 weeks later, Chuck Yeager, the same rat catcher who had ambushed a 262 over Acma, would break the sound barrier in the rocket-powered X-1. And just a few years after that, the skies over Korea would be filled with the sound of jets. The F-86 Sabre, built by the same company that made the P-51, was a direct intellectual descendant of the Me-262's swept-wing data. Its opponent, the MiG-15, was powered by a Soviet-copied British engine, but its airframe was heavily influenced by captured German designs, including the Focke-Wulf Tar 183. When the Sabre and the MiG tangled in the world's first jet-versus-jet dogfights over MiG Alley, it was the final terrifying echo of the German impossible weapon. The pilots were American and Soviet, but the engineering DNA was German. The phantom that had stunned Don Miller over Luna in 1944 had not disappeared. It had merely changed flags, creating a new generation of warfare and casting a long shadow that would define the entire Cold War.